Hi there. So, whether you are early on in your career or you are well down the road, we're going to talk today about the fact that leadership is not a job title. It's not something that's bestowed upon you by promotion or a name on a door. True leadership is how you carry yourself, it's how you influence others and solve problems, and how you remain grounded in your values, especially when it's hard. It's about your presence, how you show up. And today we're going to explore what it means to lead without the title and how 2026 can be the year that you stop waiting for permission and literally start stepping into your influence with intention and grounded confidence and also clarity. Hi, I'm Leezá Steinorf. I'm an international leadership coach, I'm a conflict resolution specialist, and I'm the creator of the Core Success Framework. And before we keep going, I want to say thank you because your comments and your engagement here on this channel help more people access tools they need to live and to lead with clarity. So I invite you to like the video and also subscribe so that you know when new ones are coming because they all build upon one another. And share your thoughts. Share the video. I know that what you share here is useful to me, and I know others can learn from you as well. All right, so let's talk first about clarity and getting clear about what leadership means to you. Simple question. What's your definition of leadership? Not the one that you think you should give, but what is your definition of leadership, the one that you actually live from? That is important to know because too often we inherit somebody else's version of leadership, or we're told this is the one we should be living according to. And maybe leadership, like the way you learned it, I know in my family, it was top-down hierarchical, right? Maybe in yours, it looked like control, or maybe it meant being decisive at all costs, whoever's going to suffer, or being emotionally unavailable, like being total intellect, or maybe always having the final word and being, that way, a commander. So there's so many different ways that it can be modeled for us through dominance or urgency, or being the strongest person in the room. And then if you were lucky, you may have had a real leader as a role model, somebody who showed up with their presence. Yeah. But if you didn't have that, if you had a version of leadership that doesn't speak to you any longer, that's what you're still living according to. And true leadership is often the opposite of what we were shown. I know it was for me. So I had to learn it the hard way and also gratefully through a lot of really good mentorship. So leadership is about presence. It's not about power. It's about responsibility and taking ownership. And it's not about getting recognition or approval. So it's a lot less about commanding attention and more about stabilizing a space so that others can not only function better within that space, but that they can bring their highest and best. That's leadership. So I'd like to ask you what your beliefs are of leadership and how they were formed. Take a moment and think about it. What were the family systems that you had that led to your interpretation of leadership? Or maybe your education, the school environment, when you think back to teachers, principals, coaches that you've had. Look at your workplace. What kind of managers have you seen? What kind of supervisors have you had? How have they shown up in your workplace or out in the world, right? Our cultural norms, what's being shown today as leadership compared to maybe what you knew earlier or what you've been taught. That's one thing. What are your beliefs about leadership and where do they come from? Then we can look at the difference of between positional power, right? Having the title, and your personal power. And the fact is that when we confuse those two, it causes a lot of frustration and burnout. So you may get the title and then maybe effortfully generate the energy to be that instead of grounding yourself, finding that presence within yourself. Okay, so that's the difference between positional power and your personal power. And then I'm going to ask you to think of some examples of leadership, quiet leadership, that changed outcomes. Often when we think of a leader, we think of the big person out at front, microphone, everybody knows their face, but there are so many examples of people that lead quietly. Moments where there was no title, but everything shifted because somebody took the leadership role. So I'm going to give you a mini practice here, an opportunity to reflect. Think about someone in your life who influenced you deeply, but maybe they weren't in charge, right? They didn't outrank you, they didn't manage you. Maybe they never even had any kind of formal leadership position or weren't acknowledged as such. But somehow for you, you felt they were a leader. What made them the leader for you? And how did you feel in their presence? What space did they hold so you could feel that way? And what changed because they were there or they were the way they were? So take a minute, write that down, reflect on it, because that answer is already pointing you towards your own definition of leadership because it's been lived for you. You've experienced it. All right, so now we're going to look at ownership, recognizing influence, your own, that you are the author of your experience. And this is where the shift begins because ownership means that you recognize you don't need permission to act from integrity. And you don't need someone to say it's okay for you to speak with care or to bring solutions into a space that feels stuck. When you know you are the author of your experience and you stand in that authority, you don't need a title at all. You need coherence and to resonate. So many capable people underestimate their impact because they're waiting for some external impulse or invitation to be who they really are. But leadership does actually not start when someone names you as the leader or even invites you. It starts when you stop giving up that authority and you stand and showing up with your presence. So here's some things to consider. How you can influence culture without having a title. How you listen, how you respond, how you participate, how much you step into situations. And then also, I want you to consider that being credible, having that credibility, doesn't come from letters at the end of your name, but when you're consistent, when you show up and are aligned with your values. Okay? You don't have to have charisma or forcefulness for that. It's when you stand strong and you do that consistently. And finally, you can groom the tools and the actions that you need so that you can take initiative, that you can be part of a collaborative environment or help build one. And it doesn't mean you have to overstep or you have to ignore other people's boundaries. Like you can come from that place and co-create collaboration. That's leadership, really is, even if you don't have the leadership title. Leadership is a whole lot less about telling people what to do and truly about how you show up when nobody else is watching. It has reverberations. It's how you handle tension, how you speak when it would either be easier to stay silent or when other people might be acting out of anger, and how you choose to be when there's no immediate payoff. When it's not about getting something back, it's about standing in who you are. So I'm going to offer you a mini practice, all right, in ownership, and that is this week, or whenever you're listening to this, take the next day and choose one meeting, one situation, and I'm going to say lead without leading. Okay, so what I mean by that is ask a thoughtful question instead of making a statement. Like invite others in, connect with their highest and best, and invite them to bring that to the table. Offer support. Instead of trying to control the situation, support someone who needs it. Guide the energy rather than trying to dominate it or control it. And if you are in a leadership position, all the more so, try out these practices on your own in the next meeting or project that you have. And then notice not just what changes in the room, but actually how you feel. What's the difference there? That's ownership, showing up with your full self. All right, so now we're going to talk about showing up in the hard moments with presence. Resolution. So leadership gets tested when things go sideways. I think it was Martin Luther King who said, the true mark of a leader is not how they show up in times of ease, but how they show up in times of struggle and challenge. I'm paraphrasing. So, how do you show up when emotions start getting hot, or when there are clearly misunderstandings, but you can't figure out what they are, or when credit gets diverted to other places, or there's a communication breakdown? How do you show up? And especially, what if you don't have the title, but you're still in those situations, right? So temptation can be that you shrink or you disengage or go quiet because it's not your place. But that's where you can actually groom leadership, self-leadership, if you will, but also leadership in your workplace or in any group. And those are the moments where your quiet influence can have the biggest impact. Leadership in these situations is not about winning, it's about actually stabilizing the moment. You can ask yourself, how can I manage conflict with calm? Even if you feel activated, take a breath. I use the acronym POP. Pause, observe, proceed. So that's how you can manage conflict with calm. Or maybe it's to listen, or maybe it's to ask questions, or maybe it's to reflect back what you hear somebody else saying. So find out how you can manage conflict with calm. Another way that you can lead in such situations is know when to speak up and how to do it without escalating. So a lot of times I'll say, so what I hear going on here is, so I become a verbal observer. I'm noticing this and keeping it factual. I'm noticing that. And people then start, when they start hearing facts of what's going on, it brings down the temperature and the volume. And then you can also consider and practice how vulnerability and understanding one another is not weakness. It's incredible strength. And it's actually a very powerful leadership tool to be able to say, hey, I'm just as confused as you are, but we're going to work this out. Number one, we're going to do this. Number two, we're going to do this. Number three, we're going to do this. Or questions. I'm feeling uptight about this. It's blindsided all of us. I'm going to suggest this, whatever that is. Team, what do you think about that? Right? So you don't have to hide yourself and fake some experience that you're not having, but you also don't lose your presence because of that. So let's just try out a scenario. Let's say someone takes credit for your work, like you've done incredible work, long hours, beautiful completion, you bring it to a close, you deliver, and somebody takes credit for it. Notice what happens, right? Your body tightens maybe and your thoughts tend to speed up and you feel dismissed and angry and maybe judgment comes, all those things. And I'm not saying ignore them at all. The question is, what do you do after that? Allow yourself to feel that. Allow yourself to process it. But then find the highest and best in yourself and ask, how do you respond as a leader? Even when you're not the boss, how are you going to respond as a leader? So I'm going to come back to a tool. It's based on a POP, pause, observe, proceed. This is pause, name, and redirect. Okay, again, 3 steps. So pause your reaction. If you need time to regulate, you need time to experience whatever you're going through, absolutely give yourself that time. The next thing is to name what happens. So here we're going to talk about facts. And if you've listened to any of my other videos on distinguishing facts from filter, super useful. Check them out. So name what happened. Be objective without accusations or without judgments. And then redirect toward a shared goal or a common outcome, something that everybody can benefit from. So it's not being passive. It's actually being accurate, if you will. And over time, it builds trust because you're not being reactive. So now let's talk about excellence. And excellence, the way I define it, is coming from your highest and your best. And it's committing to a standard that you define. Okay, so this brings everything really together on leadership, because leading without the title, even if you have the title, but not having the title mean or define your leadership, it means living from your values in real time. Showing up not because someone's watching you or you're supposed to, but because that's simply who you are. Excellence here is not perfection, it's being aligned with your actions and your values, bringing those together. So choosing a standard that reflects your integrity and your desires and not your fears. So we're going to finish with looking at a couple of things. Setting personal standards for how you want to lead, regardless of your role. So you can write them down, like what's important to you, listening in meetings, writing clear communicative emails, leaving work on time, showing up for work on time, whatever your standards are, your highest and best, set them and let people know what they are. Another one is building your leadership brand from the inside out. And brand is so overused these days. What I mean by that is that people know, oh, that's who you are, right? It's what identifies you, and not through your performance, but really through your reliability and what you create in the world. And then the other one is to stay consistent. Even when there is no recognition, or as we said earlier, somebody takes credit, right? You remain consistent. You keep going and you keep coming from the highest and the best that you know, and you keep delivering on your values. That's leadership. So I'm going to offer you a mini vision exercise for the new year, for 2026. And let's just write down one sentence that describes the kind of leader that you want to be in 2026. Regardless of your title, what kind of leader do you want to be? And then after you write that down, because earlier in the video, remember we defined your definition of leadership. After you have that, this is the kind of leader that I'm going to be in 2026. Then write down what habits support that. Write them down. What words can I use or do I enjoy engaging that align with that kind of leadership? And finally, what actions contradict it? What actions or patterns do I have that need to change, that are not aligned with that kind of leadership? This is where leadership becomes a lived practice. It's who you are in the world, not just an aspiration. It becomes very tangible. So let's take a breath and reflect. I'm going to say it again. You don't need the corner office, although that's awfully nice, of course, but you don't need that title on the door and you don't need the office in order to lead. You don't need some kind of acknowledgement or even a team to be reporting to you. You can be part of a team. What you do need is the willingness to show up with your presence, with the highest and best of who you are. And so take responsibility for your ownership. Own that. Lead yourself first, especially when it would be easier not to, when things get tough, as I've already said. So I'm going to invite you this year in 2026 to stop waiting to be chosen and really choose to be the leader. Because your leadership, real leadership, begins with when you actually decide to bring the presence that you know you want to see more of in the world. You know, Gandhi, I think it was, said, be the change you want to see in the world. That's kind of what we're talking about. Be the leader that you would like to see more of in the world. Okay, so if today's conversation sparks something in you, then take one small step this week for yourself. Choose a moment to lead from within. You can set it ahead of time or in the moment. Recognize it. Maybe it's a kind word. Maybe it's telling an honest truth. Maybe it's speaking with a calm voice when things get tense. So start there. Start small, one step at a time. Try it out. I invite you. Okay? And if you'd like more tools like this, be sure to subscribe to the channel because then you'll know when new videos come out. Please leave a comment below. It's really wonderful to hear what you're working with. I'd love to hear your definition of leadership, and share this with someone else in your office, somebody who you know is ready to also or would benefit from leading in 2026. So together we can literally change how leadership looks and how it feels from the inside out. Thank you for listening. Be well.